Hi guys, it's the Voodoo doll from Noir Grimoire. Today we're going to be going over how to overcome and expedite heartache, heartbreak. We've all been through it. It's one of the worst things that I feel like you could ever go through. It is a form of death, but there are ways that we can overcome that heartbreak a lot faster. So I'm going to go through my notes. I do have notes and I have my computer here, so I'm going to be going back and forth between looking at you and looking down. But here is some magic, I guess, that we can work. It's not really a magic spell, but it's a way to pull up and out of us that animosity, the residual of the relationship. It is so important to do this. This is called negative reappraisal. We're going to use negative reappraisals to go ahead and kill and murder any of those, the imbalance of inaccurate, idealized thoughts. Because when we break up with someone, there's an imbalance of these idealized thoughts. He was so romantic. He was so wonderful. I remember our first kiss. I remember our first dance. This song reminds me of him. I remember the first time we made love. Like, we romanticize the relationship and we don't tend to think about the bad things. It's really hard to think about the bad things because we start to relive them and we start to get angry and we start to get agitated and we just don't want to deal with it. So we shut it off and we try to numb ourselves. So we don't want to numb ourselves. We definitely want to go through the pain and the discomfort of negative reappraisals. It's very hard to do. You're going to be pissed off, but I have some solutions for you, some suggestions while doing this writing exercise, because it is a writing exercise. So you'll want to go back to the beginning of this and grab your paper and all the supplies after you've watched it. But while you're doing your writing exercises with your non-dominant hand, you want to have Play-Doh. It's very silly, I know, but this will add some fun to it. So Play-Doh, any color, doesn't matter. They sell it at the 99-cent store. So you're going to have Play-Doh in your non-dominant hand. So I have my ball of Play-Doh. You want it to be big enough so you can pull it apart and construct something out of it. So you want it to be at least twice this size. So probably the size of a golf ball, probably. So in your non-dominant hand, while you are writing, you're going to put your energy into this Play-Doh. Squeeze it while you're writing. If you get angry, squeeze down on it. You want to keep transferring your energy into this Play-Doh. So imagine when you're writing and you're doing these exercises that we're going to go through, imagine light coming through your body, and you could even make it a black. It doesn't even have to be a light. It could be black coming through your body, coming out of your crown chakra, going down to your body, going through your arm, going through your hand, and going into this Play-Doh. So we're imagining that we're pulling things out. Every time I have a negative emotion, when I'm going through and writing this, I'm putting that into this. This is your ex-boyfriend. This little piece of dough is your ex-boyfriend. And we're transferring all the shit that he deserves, that he left in us, we're putting back into him. So that's what you want to envision and kind of meditate on before you start these writing exercises. So now we have our Play-Doh. That would be the first thing. We have our Play-Doh in our hand. So the first thing we're going to do is, in our negative reappraisals, I want you to make a list. And in that list, I want you to write down everything bad. If it takes you 6 pages, then do it. Write down every single thing about this person that annoyed you, that you told him 10 times to stop doing, that irritated you, things that aren't even his fault. He had a small penis, whatever it is that you cannot stand, ugly feet, whatever, write it all down. It's important. And I know it seems silly and, maybe chuckling about it now, but it really is important. Every single thing. He had a unibrow. He talked with his mouth open when he was eating his food. Pull every single thing that you can for your memory that annoyed you about this ex out of yourself into your little ball and write it down. So that is the first step. So you would go down and write down everything that annoyed you. So now that we have this list of everything that this person has done to us, I'm sure we're feeling pretty fucked up because you're reliving every birthday that he forgot, the time he flirted with your friend, the time that you sent him a message and he didn't respond fast enough, or he liked your girlfriend's pictures on Instagram too much. You're reliving all of that and you're probably in a heated, hot ass, pissed off mess. And that's fine. That's what you want to be, because you want to get to a point where this shit no longer bothers you. But if you keep it bottled up and you're not dealing with it and you keep trying to repress it, you are going to freak out on the next guy that doesn't answer your texts quick enough, or may like your friend's post on Instagram or something. And even though you're in the damn picture, you still go off on his ass on why he liked it. And you were tagged in it, and I thought you looked pretty in it, but you're thinking that he's looking at your friend because that's what the ex is doing. So we gotta pull all of that out and give ourselves the best chance to move on. So now we have our list of everything that pissed us off about this guy. The next thing I want us to do is we have to know ourselves. So we know everything about this guy, that he pissed us off, he did this and this. Do you know yourself? Know thyself. So the next two exercises are going to be about knowing ourselves. So the first thing we need to know is, do we know our love language? What love language do we speak? There's a lot of psychologists that say that it's irrelevant, that it doesn't matter. This person that came up with this, Gary Chapman, I don't think that he's a psychologist, but I read his book. This was like over 30 years ago, I think, that the book came out. It's an amazing system, as generic as it may be, that I like to use for just an eye-opening exercise. A lot of us don't know our love languages, and a lot of us don't know the love languages of our partners. And this is important. We'll get back to why it's important to what we did and the first exercise after. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, giving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Those are the 5 love languages. You need to know which of the 5 you are. Now, Gary Chapman says that everybody has one primary love language and one secondary love language. My primary love language is acts of service. I'm actually very fluent in all 5, and I feel like I'm well balanced in all of them. I don't feel like I have a primary and a secondary. I feel like I'm fluent in all of them. So I would say acts of service and giving gifts would be, say, my first 2. So in case you're not familiar with what each one is, just take a listen to the definition of each one and take it in and try to pick out your primary and your secondary. So, words of affirmation. People with words of affirmation as a love language value verbal acknowledgments of affection, including frequent I love yous, compliments, words of appreciation, verbal encouragement, and often frequent digital communication like texting and social media. Written and spoken shows of affection matter the most to these people. So that is words of affirmation. So if you feel like that's your number 1, keep that in mind. So we'll move on to quality time. So people whose love language is quality time feel the most adored when their partner actively wants to spend time with them and is always down to hang out. They particularly love when active listening, eye contact, and full presence are prioritized hallmarks in the relationship. This love language is all about giving your undivided attention to one special person without the distraction of television, phone screens, or any other outside interference. They have a strong desire to actively spend time with their significant other, having meaningful conversations and sharing recreational activities. So, next one is acts of service. If your love language is acts of service, you value when your partner goes out of their way to make your life easier. It's things like bringing you soup when you're sick, making your coffee for you in the morning, or picking up your dry cleaning for you when you've had a busy day at work. This love language is for people who believe in those actions speak louder than words. Unlike those who prefer to hear how much they're cared for, people on this list like to be shown how they're appreciated. Doing the smaller and bigger chores to make their lives easier or more comfortable is highly cherished by these people. Gifts, we don't need to explain gifts. Giving gifts and receiving gifts, self-explanatory. And physical touch. People with touch as their love language feel loved when they receive physical signs of affection, including kissing, holding hands, cuddling on the couch, and sex. Physical intimacy and touch can be incredibly affirming and serve as a powerful emotional connector for people with this love language. The roots go back to our childhood. Some people only feel deep affection and love by their parents when they were held, kissed, or touched. People who communicate their appreciation through this language, when they consent to it, feel appreciated when they are hugged, kissed, or cuddled. They value the feeling of warmth and comfort that comes with physical touch. So those are the 5 love languages. Pick out what is your primary and what is your secondary. Then you're going to pick out what was your ex-boyfriend's, your partner's primary, and what was his secondary. Then we're going to go back to that list of negative things that we wrote down about this person and our negative reappraisals, and we're going to pick out which of these things are due to miscommunication and misunderstanding of love languages. Is he really a cold asshole that never wants to cuddle? Or is it that his love language is quality time and acts of service? You need to figure out the truth and separate reality from fiction, because it's so nice to throw dirt on someone and he was this and he was that and that, but if you do not take responsibility for what you did and place the blame on other people, you will take those things and those miscommunications into your next relationship and you will suffer there. So the most important thing is to know thyself. So go down that list and figure out which of the things on that list are due to just not understanding and speaking the same love language. Then pick out the things on that list that possibly were his love language. He texted me too much and annoyed me. Possibly that was his love language. He was too clingy. I like people that back off. Maybe that's his primary love language. So go down that list and take responsibility for the things that are yours. Miscommunications due to not speaking the same love language. Now, I'm not saying if the guy was rude that, or he was too clingy that he wasn't clingy, but I'm saying it could have been his love language and maybe you didn't speak the same love language and that's why you were annoyed. It's important to note that. Referring to my notes. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, in knowing ourselves, we have to set the standard. We have to set the standard for ourselves. We can't let anybody else set the standard for us. If you don't know your standard and your scale and where you stand on what type of man you want, you are always going to either settle for less than you deserve, or you're always going to have heartbreak because they're just not what you want. They may be 20% of what you want and 80% of what you don't want. Do you know what you want? Do you know what you want? So this next exercise is figuring out what do we want and setting the standard. When we set the standard, when we set this, we are never going to deviate from this. And if we do deviate from this, we are never going to call a spellcaster to bail our ass out because we knew exactly what the fuck we were doing because we wrote it down and we know what our standard is. And we're going to be big girls and big boys and take responsibility for ourselves for not sticking to the standard, to the protocol. Imagine if you were a quality checker for a 5-star restaurant and your only job is to make sure that nothing comes out of the kitchen that does not look like it could be presented to the queen. And all of a sudden you say, that soup bowl is a little dirty, but whatever, I'm tired. It doesn't matter. You wouldn't do that because your life depends on it. Your job depends on it. Your livelihood depends on it. Your income depends on it. Your everything depends on it. Your reputation. Everything depends on you doing your job with excellence and making sure that everything out of that kitchen comes out of there 5-star. Why are we not doing the same sort of quality checks in our men? When you go to the grocery store and you're in the produce section and we pick up fruit and we're pre-qualifying that fruit, we're inspecting it, we're looking at it, oh, it's damaged, it's irregular, I don't want that, I put it back, and we look for the most perfect one that's visually accepting to us and we take that one. Why are we taking irregular ass motherfuckers into our bodies, into our beds, into our children's lives? You take time to pick out fruit, but you don't take time to pre-qualify and inspect your men. So today we're going to set the standard. So with setting the standard is we're going to go down a list of things that are important to us. Now you can write down 75 things if you want. I have 25 for you right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to write all of these down. And then we're going to score them on a scale of 1 to 10 of how important they are to us. So for example, the first one is attractiveness. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is attractiveness to you, to a lover? So if it's the most important thing and it just cannot be, you have to be attracted to them. I'm not even gonna, maybe I like them, you would put a 10. If attractiveness is not something that's important to you and you're more of a sapiosexual, then you would write down 1 because it's not important to you. You like intelligence. So what we are going to do, actually I have 26 things because I just forgot about intelligence. So we're going to number our paper 1 through 26. And then we're going to write down these things and we're going to grade them. And by the way, you should still have this in your hand and be holding this in your hand. Do we know what we want? So here is how we set our standards. So let's write these down. Attractiveness. And after I read each one, you're going to write it down and then you're going to put your number on the scale of 1 to 10. How important is attractiveness to you? So attractiveness. Career versus job. Do you date men that are not career men? Can they be blue collar? Or do they have to have a career, a PhD? Career versus job. How important is career to you? Education and intelligence. Education and intelligence. How important is that to you? Height. Hair color. Hair, period. If they're balding, is that a deal breaker? Eye color. Race. Penis size. Does he have to be 7 inches or taller to ride this ride? Good lover or sex drive. Quality time. Income. Wanting kids. How important is it if your lover likes or wants kids? Has no children of his own. How important is it to you that your lover does not have his own kids? He has no children and no babies' moms. Religion. Family background. And relationship with parents. How important is it to you that his parents are still married? How important is it to you, his relationship with his mother and how he talks about her and how he treats her, because that is very telling. How important is it to you how he gets along with his brothers and sisters? Drinking. Smoking. Drugs. How important is it to you that the person does not drink, does not smoke, does not do drugs? Hobbies. How important is it to you that you have the same hobbies and interest? Involved in sports or sports enthusiasts. How important is that to you that they don't like sports or don't play sports? I know for one, myself, I will never date anybody that likes sports. I don't want to hear football on Sunday blaring in my fucking Victorian living room with all my furniture and a bunch of guys farting on it and spilling food. So sports is a deal breaker for me. I will not date anybody that is interested in sports. And if I did, we could never live together, or we could never have a sports party at the house. It's just really important. You have got to know yourself. And it sounds silly, and I know some of these things on this list, you're like, what does it matter? But it does. It does. Video games. How important is it that your mate does not play video games? Political views. Do you have to have the same political views? Or do you prefer someone that doesn't talk about politics at all? Diet. Is it important for you to date another vegan? Would it bother you if you're a meat eater if your partner was a vegan? Or if they were a pescatarian? Would that be a deal breaker for you? Health. Would you date someone that was overweight? Could you date someone that had cancer? Could you date someone that had an STD? Health is important. Love languages. How important is it that you speak the same love languages with your partner? Now that we know what love languages are, how important are those things in another person, to have the same love language with another person? So now what you're going to do is you're going to take all your numbers. So you have the 26 things that you wrote down. You wrote down 26 numbers. You're going to add them all up. So let's just say I went ahead and I gave 10 points for each thing. So I have 260 points. That's the 260 points is my standard. That is my scale. So now we want to think about it in terms of levels. So when you think about your credit, like say your credit 850 points is the highest that you can go on your credit. If you cannot get to 719 points, which is considered 719 points is good, 720 and above is great. So sometimes you can't even rent an apartment if you don't have a 720 score. That's the minimum. So now we need to set standards for ourselves. So the highest score we can have is 260 points. So if we were to take that and try to level it out, let's say just divide it by 4, say they have to be within, you know, around 80 points to be good. Then we have okay. Then we have poor. Then we have no. So now we have, that is our scale and those are our standards. So what we want to do now is go down and write all the answers of your preferences for those things. Write down your preferences. So next to attractiveness, write down what is the most attractive to you. Tall, dark, and handsome. Okay, then write that down. Career versus job. If you know what type of career you'd like your lover to have, then write that down. Height, 6'3" and above. Okay, hair color, black hair only. Must have hair. I don't date bald people. Okay, eye color. I like green eyes. Race, I don't care. Penis size, 6 inches and above. Good lover. Sex drive. Oh, I don't really have sex drive. I don't really care about all that. Quality time. You know, I'd like to spend at least 4 days a week with my lover, spending the night, and then 2 days alone, and 1 day whatever. So write that down. Income. I'd like my lover to make 7 figures a year. Who wouldn't? Sure. Wants kids? No. Has children of his own? Nope, don't want him to have kids. Religion. For me, that would be no religion because that would really be a mismatch. If I had someone that was really religious, it just wouldn't work. We couldn't even have a conversation past my occupation. So family background, relationship with parents. Some people don't like dating only children because they tend to be selfish, so write that down. Drink. I don't care if he has 2 beers a day. Smoke. I don't care if he smokes weed recreationally, but I don't accept cigarettes. Drugs. I don't care as long as he's not an addict. Hobbies. Whatever. Write down your hobbies. Involved in sports? Fuck no. Video games? Get a fucking life, loser. Political views? I don't really care. Diet? I'm a pescatarian, so I can cook meat. Doesn't bother me. Health? Fit, slim, or fat? I am not fat, so they gotta match me. Love language preferences? I can pretty much work with any love language. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go ahead and write down all your preferences now. Now, we still have this little ball in our hand. We're still working this ball. Now we're going to go down and write our ex-boyfriend. So we're going to scale him. You don't have to write each thing again. You're just going to scale him. So you're going to, if his name is John, so write down John in the second column. You have here your third column or whatever. You want a master list though. So actually write your standard on a piece of paper. Write down your score and then write down your preferences, your answers, and that's your master list. Don't write anything down on that. On a separate piece of paper, go ahead and number 1 through 26 or however many questions you have on that paper. Write your ex's name on the top, John. Go down and rate his ass for every one. So number 1 on my scale is attractiveness, and John was a 4. But on my scale, I said I want a 7 and above, but he was 4, so I'm going to write that down. Career versus job, he lived in his mom's basement, so, you know, 0 on that one. And the score for the boyfriends is 0 to 10. That you can get a 0, meaning not even close, 0. But, you know, your standard is going to be 1 through 10. So you go ahead and you write down the score for each thing for your ex, and you go ahead and add it up, and you compare it to your scale. So the highest we can go is, on mine, I asked 26 questions, 260 points, when I added John's, score up, he scored a 46. Now, I want you to ask yourself, if he scored a 46, but your score was a 260 on your standard, that's the minimum you would accept, which is the lie? Who's the liar? Him or you? Did you lie to yourself? Is he the villain or is it you? Because he came over there with 4 inches of penis and you knew that. Unless he forced it on you, you consciously decided to accept that and then hate him for it after. That is your fault. That's your fault. Eye color. You like green eyes. He had black eyes. You selected that. Height. Your minimum height requirement was 6'3" to ride, the glorious ride that you are, and he was 5'6". Again, who is the victimizer here? So we like to sit here and think of all these things about these guys, and I'm not saying that they aren't the trash that we say they are, but you have to take responsibility for what is your fault. Did you victimize yourself and break your own heart with your expectations or lack of standards? And what I mean by expectations is expecting him to be able to read your mind, that he speaks the same love language as you. Did you break your own heart? And if you broke your own heart, how did you break your own heart? Work through that. Work through that list. Oh, I see here on my standard that, I said that he had to have a good income, but when I met him, he was on unemployment. You still slept with them. So who is to blame here? The guy is a loser, but you ushered him right on into your life, your vagina, your bed, and your aura, and everything else without a problem. Somebody is to blame here, and I am actually going to point the finger at the person watching this video right now. You. We need to stick to our standards. So now that we have this standard, and we've had a good chuckle and a good cry, we want to stick to this. From now on, we are going to start pre-disqualifying, not qualifying, disqualifying motherfuckers like they are applying at the bank for a mortgage. As soon as we look over this and see, well, he's balding. That was a 0, a 1 on my thing. Or 10, that was a 10 for me. It's very important. He's bald. Scratch a check off there. Let's see. Wants kids. I don't want anybody that wants kids. He has 6 with 8 different babies' mamas. Okay, I'm going to check that off. Let's see. He likes sports. I don't want anybody that likes sports. So it's not even any, reason of going in any further because the averages wouldn't add up. He wouldn't even make it into your top cut. He wouldn't even qualify for that loan. If the minimum credit score for that loan out of 260 was, a 190, he doesn't even make it. He's got a 65. We're going to rip up his application. We're going to thank him for applying, and we're going to move the fuck on. We've got to start pre-disqualifying these people instantly and moving on and saying no. We don't say no. We get lonely. Oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to go out with this guy. He's a little bit shorter than I like, but I'm so lonely. I'm so tired of sitting in the house. I need to get over my ex, whatever. And what happens? You start catching feelings for that guy. And it's not even your type of guy. Why are you even catching feelings for him? You're lonely. And you did it to yourself. Start saying no. Start practicing pre-disqualifying guys. Go on Bumble. Go on Tinder. I'm not saying you have to actually interact with these people, but look at their picture. Read their profile. Look at the picture. Look at the picture of the profile. God, he's got a receding hairline. That's not for me. And click. I don't care if, he's got nice eyes and I like his tattoos and his muscles. You said on your chart that was a deal breaker for you. So move on. And if you're going to make exceptions for certain things and you realize that you're willing to make exceptions for certain things, and change your standard and change your score, change your scale, and be honest with yourself and hold yourself to that standard of excellence that you set when you were in your right fucking mind, when you weren't horny, when you weren't lonely, when you saw that your ex moved on with your best friend on his fucking Instagram profile, when you weren't triggered. You sat down and you wrote this out in your right mind for your highest good, for your greater self. You did this out of love. So this scale is what you want to refer to because it's the truth. There's no emotion in here. It's just you and your pen. So hold yourself to your standard. We're going to start quality checking guys and pre-disqualifying them. And then what we're going to do is when we don't stick to this list, you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to call Voodoo. That's what we're not going to do, because you know that you did this to yourself and you're going to accept it. You're going to accept that burn. You're going to accept that heartbreak. You're going to accept that failure. You're going to accept the embarrassment that he did this to you and he embarrassed you and all that, because I guarantee you if you had a pre-disqualified his ass, he wouldn't have even made it to second base to pull out that 4-inch penis that you would have disqualified him on that too when you saw that, because you wrote 8 on your list. So there's so many things that we can do to stop ourselves from going down the wrong path with the wrong man and avoid this heartbreak. But this is my suggestion on expediting heartbreak. So now we pulled out all of that. We have it. We have this ball in our hand. We've been working this ball this whole time. I don't know how long it will take you to do this. Maybe 40 minutes, whatever. Take this ball. We're going to take it and we're going to make it in the shape of a person. Doesn't have to look like anything. I just did this little thing. What you're going to do is you're going to take that list, all the shit on there that you wrote that he was, he was this and that, the everything that he fucked up and fell short on list. You're going to put this little guy on that list. And you're going to take it and you're going to take that list, you're going to take that little guy, and you are going to say, thank you for the lessons. I forgive you. And I forgive myself for accepting less than I deserved. And I forgive myself for being desperate. I forgive myself for everything I allowed you to do to me. And I forgive you for everything I didn't allow you to do to me. Everything that you pushed my limits, everything that I could not control that you did to me, I forgive you for that too. And you know what? We're going to wish you to rest in pieces or rot in pieces, whatever you want to say. You can spit on this thing, you could punch it, you could stab it, you could do whatever you want, pee on it, whatever. Take that paper. Go ahead, take it. This is just graveyard dirt. If you don't have graveyard dirt, go get regular dirt. Sprinkle that dirt on this, fold that paper up, and bury it. Rest in peace. Throw the dirt on top of the little body and be done. If you can't bury it and you live in an apartment complex, then go ahead, fold this little guy up, paper and everything, throw him in the trash, go grab a handful of dirt outside and sprinkle that dirt on top of that in the trash can and just say, rotten pieces, asshole. Rest in pieces, motherfucker. I'm done. Literally, you are buried and done. I'm done. You're no longer in me. You're no longer in my mind. Like, I'm done. I realize the fallacy. I realize what was wrong. I realize now what was wrong, so I can stop hating you and I can stop hating myself, and I'm going to move on and find somebody else that is the 260 that I have on my standard list, and I'm no longer dating 150s and below. I'm not doing it. No, there's a lot to be said about a woman that has standards and holds herself to her standards. Hold yourself to your standards. Now, if you want to go out and have booty calls, whatever, that's on you. I'm not that girl. I've never been that girl. But when you start holding yourself accountable to your standards and start seeing immediately that this guy's going to waste your time, I don't like the way he speaks to me. I didn't like the way that he didn't hold the door open for me on my first date. Those are your brain telling you, red flag, but we want to not listen to it. We want to not listen to it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have conversations with people like, hey, you know what, I really like you, but I was just wondering, we don't seem to vibe on the same language and certain things. I was wondering, can we have a conversation? For the love of God, please don't try to talk to guys about love languages. They don't want to hear that shit. Or call your ex up and say, oh, I realized that we didn't speak the right love language and my love language is this. And he's going to say, you know what, this is exactly why I broke up with your ass, and he's going to block you. Don't do it. When you learn somebody's love language, then learn to adapt to theirs. So if you know that the new guy you're dating, your love languages are acts of service and physical touch, and his are quality time and gifts. So, okay, he's not really speaking my love language, but I understand now that he is showing me love because I know these are the things that he does to show me attention. you can't discount that. A lot of us say, oh, he didn't love me, he never did this, because they didn't speak the love language that you spoke. And then they're saying, well, she never appreciated shit I did. And you say, well, you never did anything. Well, they did, but they didn't do it in your language, so you didn't recognize it. So he's always buying you gifts when you don't give a shit about gifts. You would rather sit on the couch and watch Netflix, and you can tell that person that. You don't have to hurt their feelings, but you can say, you know, I'd really rather just have special time with you. I appreciate the gifts, I really do, but I'm letting you know that time with you is more valuable to me. And if they can't adapt, and don't say that, you know, they don't love you or whatever, they just can't adapt. Not every man had a mom that snuggled him and cuddled him and kissed him and, you know, showed him affection and touch. So that may be something that he's not able to do. Maybe he was abused. You have to figure it out. Everybody is completely different. But I implore you to do this exercise to expedite heartbreak and avoid the next heartbreak. Learn yourself, know thyself, learn your love languages, and set the standard. Set the scale, set the standard, hold everybody to it. Whip this shit out as soon as you meet somebody and you start dating. As soon as things come up, go ahead and check them off. Maybe you haven't had the conversation about kids, but when it comes up in a couple weeks and it's, you know, go ahead and compare it. Where does it compare on your scale? And when you start to get enough information from that scale, and you realize that, you know, my number on my scale is a 180, is my perfect man is going to be around a 180, and you notice that he still hasn't gotten over 90, it's time to maybe just go ahead and tell him you just want to be friends. So I enjoyed talking to you guys today. Have a great day, and of course you can email me about anything. Also, don't forget that I just started running another special on the store. On Fridays, mostly, I'm doing unlimited Q&A readings for a half an hour. So it's a half an hour, and whatever you can ask within that time frame, we will go through. So if you are the type of person where you can ask a question and be quiet and let me tell you the answer, you may be able to get, you know, 10 yes or no questions in that half an hour. But if you're the type of person who needs to talk and explain everything, you may only be able to get 2, but it's unlimited, 30 minutes Q&A. It's available on the site. And don't forget our full moon prosperity rituals on the first on the full moon of every month. So, all right, stay blessed, and I will see you soon.